And it's a great good morning to all of you that are out there this morning. God bless. It's good to have you there. Miss Carolyn, good morning to you. You just wait. It's wonderful to see you up there. Miss Sue, also good morning to you. And Alyssa, I think I'm saying that right finally. Alyssa, good morning to you and your incredible children. Thank you so much for these daily studies in His Word. You're so very welcome. It is my great pleasure, and I pray that you and your three wonderful young children will enjoy them, and I'm able to be relevant to what they're going through as well. You got it. Thank you. Uh, I answered anything. Well, so do I. Usually it's hey you, but no, it's a challenge to make sure that I want to make sure the word speaks to even the youngest viewers that we have that are out there. Uh, and I believe maybe Cam and Cara and Cody, other than Riley when she's on, probably the youngest that we have out there. And it's good to have them there. Terry says, please pray for me. I've been having a tremendous amount of back pain in the last couple of weeks. I got a illness in lidocaine. There we go. I had to work my way through that one. Lidocaine shot yesterday, and also a COVID booster and pneumonia shot this morning. I am achy, but I think by this afternoon it should pass. I feel like it is the result of the shots. Well, I can tell you, I got the regular flu shot and the pneumonia shot together. And I was sicker than a dog for a few weeks, and Janice did the same thing. Oh, shingles, that's what I got, shingles and the flu shot. So, yeah, so I can absolutely sympathize with you. I got a text message from Cynthia this morning, too. She said she'd have to pick up later because she's got Dale and taking him to a doctor to have his nose cauterized again. He's been having tremendous nosebleeds that last for hours. This is about the third time I think she said they've had to cauterize his nose. And I'm sure it's all related to his cancer and the cancer treatment and everything. So get Dale out there and pray for him today as we will as we get started. Sherry says, good morning, family. Brings such joy to gather and study together. Yes, it does. I had a really neat word visiting with a friend the other day, and he's gotten plugged in. He's listening in the mornings. Well, usually later in the day, but he's got a lady that he has worked with in the company he works for quite some time, and she's had a lot of problems in her life, and she's going through some struggles now. And he turned her on to this, and he got her plugged into it. And if you're out there and you're listening, you're going to listen later. Uh, we'll pray for you as well that God sees you through these difficult times. But it's kind of neat the way the word spreads, and the congregation here, the following for these Bible studies broaden out. Uh, and I am sure it's not this stumbling, bubbling person. It has to be the Word of God that draws, and I love that. Good morning, Miss Helen. It's good to have you. I don't know whether you were on by time I announced Dale, but Cynthia's got to take Dale in to have his nose cauterized again because of the nosebleeds. All right, let's jump in, first of all, with our reminder of where we are. And believe it or not, we still got the rest of this week and next week to go. So who knows where it's going to land? Only God does, because He has a plan. And we want to fit into that plan. And remember, when God blesses greatly, much is going to be expected. We need to be prepared for the very next thing God does, or the next door that God opens, and be faithful to walk through it. Uh, at any rate, that's where we are there. And moving into this, yesterday we've been looking now at the first section in chapter 5. We'll move on to the second section after prayer. But Solomon contrasts the wise worshiper with the unwise worshiper. Our attitude in worship comes into play in this first section, verses 1 through uh, let's see, I think it's 1 through 8, and that opens up. what our attitude to worship ought to be. We need to be careful. Enter into worship reverently with our hearts prepared. So be careful. Listen diligently. Listen with ears willing to hear and respond to the Word of God. Exercise caution and prayer. In other words, do more listening than we do talking. Let God speak to you, and then you respond back to Him. Let it be a dialogue and a conversation. A dialogue is never one way; it's always a two-way give. So listen and then speak. Know your place. Now, that doesn't mean get put in your place. Just simply understand what your position in this whole affair is. Do not be hasty in word or impulse, in thought, to bring up the matter in the presence of God. For God is in heaven and you are on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. In other words, God's in heaven. He sees it all. He knows it all. He's there. We're not. We are finite. We live on earth. We live in the box. He lives out of the box. So know our place. Let's not try to be God, okay? Let God be God and we simply be the servants and the children that we're called to be. The next thing he says is keep your vows. When you make a vow to God, don't be late in paying it, for it takes no delight in fools. Pay what you vow. In other words, be careful about what you promise to do. When you make a promise, follow through. And we're talking especially about those promises made to God or in His behalf. Like I said, if I say, I'll pray for you, then I need to make sure that I follow through on that, because that's a promise I've made not only to an individual but to God. Marriage vows, oaths, and all of these kind of things fall in that category. So he tells us to be careful what we vow, guard your steps. Let's see. There we go. Know your place. Be careful what you vow. There we go. First, be careful, what you vow, what you say, what you make a commitment to. Uh, and second, we ought to be careful what we ask people to promise before God. So these are all wrapped up in the idea of being a wise worshiper and not to be one whose attitude is foolish, who rushes in and rushes out of worship, who is busy playing video games when they ought to be listening to what God says. Come prepared. Get your heart, your life prepared for what God wants to say to you during any point of worship. Now, I want us to pray, and then we're going to go into the very next section, which is really we could call that the folly of chasing wealth. That could be a difficult one for us, but because it hits really close to home, because we're talking about our pocketbooks. All right, let's pray. Father, I want to thank you for the family that you've gathered together this morning to hear from you. And I pray that's what we are here, with our ears open, with a listening heart, our ears bent toward you, so that we hear every nuance within even the sound of your voice as you speak to us through your word. Now, Lord, that it's my mouth that is going to be moving, but I pray that through all of that, your word may come through to the heart of each and every one that is listening, young and older alike. Father, let us be doers of the word and not mere hearers only. Now, Lord, we do. We lift Terry up from her back pain. Now, the, the effects of the shots. Give her ease, give her comfort, and truly, by this afternoon, Lord, have her feeling better than certainly she does now. Guard her. She's precious to us, Lord. She is a precious servant. And Lord, we just keep her in your hands. For Dale, we lift him up. You know the battle that he's having now with the cancer, the biopsy coming up. You know all of that that's going on. These nosebleeds are really difficult to deal with when they happen, and just you can't get them to stop. So, Lord, give him encouragement, even in these days. Lord, let him find his strength. in the joy that can be placed in you. For Nehemiah tells us that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So, Lord, I pray for Buddy as he's going through this time where uh, he's going through the physical struggles and the problems that the cancer has created through his whole body, being on hospice. But Lord, thank you. On those days, he's strong enough and able to be with us. We praise you for that, Lord. Now, open to us your word. Let us understand it. Lord, give me the grace to be able to put things in perspective to who we are and where we live in relationship to your word. Thank you, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, let's move forward. As we turn our attention to the second section of chapter 5, we'll be looking at our attitude toward riches or money. Uh, Verses 10 through 20 give us this second section, and I've titled it The Folly of Chasing Money, simply because that's really at the core and the heart of everything that we're going to learn from Solomon in this section. As we start, I just want to give you a personal proposition for you, and that's very simple. We should never live for money. That should not be the driving force and the motivation in our life. Now, I know sometimes we say, well, that's not the motivation. You see, I want to gain all this wealth so I can give more. Well, if that's the motivation, that's one thing. But generally, uh, we may not find that to be the actual motivation behind getting, because once we get, sometimes it's like, prying our fingers off it to get a dime out of it. So that's just a piece of advice that I think you and I, maybe all who live in the West, especially in America, should take to heart. You see, perhaps two of the best symbols of American materialism that I can think of are days like Black Friday, that really starts, on sunny Wednesday. I don't know, but it seems like what used to be a 1 day sale that really put drew people in is now turned into more like a Black Weekend. Or a Black Thanksgiving, because it always comes the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. And I know people that they're in a store hours before that store opens, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, to be the first to get in there and get that thing that they need or want so badly. Another one comes right on its heels called Cyber Monday. That's where you get all these great sales on the internet, and systems crash with people trying to go on, so many getting on to get this thing, to get this thing. Now, what drives these sorts of events, I think, come from two gigantic storm fronts, if you will. First, you got the consumer and their fascination with the shiny new object or that great deal that you've got to get that thing that's marked down to a fortune, kind of thing. The second storm front is the retailers who will do just about anything to make a buck. We're going to have only 25 of these large screen TVs on for $400. Be the first to get yours. The lines get, and the first 25 get theirs, and then the next ones come up. They're going to get something more expensive, though to them they've gotten a deal. When these two storm fronts come together, you've got an explosive situation. It just blows up. People get hurt, get arrested, fights break. It's an amazing phenomena to work retail at Black Friday. Uh, Most of my kids have worked retail during those periods of time. I did not. When I was working retail, I was in a meat market, and the rush on those things was incredible in itself. At any rate, uh, these things are this thing called materialism is so powerful that it's like this giant black hole, and we're so easily drawn by its gravitational pull, we get sucked in. Uh, Friday after Thanksgiving has been starting earlier each year. Yeah, sometimes a week before. Yeah, everybody's going to get a jump on Black Friday. Before long, what we're going to find is that Black Friday is going to come on Labor Day and run all the way through. That just seems to be the trend. I mean, when you've got stuff out for Easter before you ever get the stuff from Christmas off the shelves, you know we've got a real skewed kind of concept, in our country. But we can get sucked into this black hole called materialism, and I would bet anything that I could bet. I bet that every one of us know exactly what I'm talking about from personal experience. It's a very difficult thing to push back from. Is this thing called materialism? I don't know. Maybe the Lord put this, took it in his own hand. He put this here. I have no problem believing that he could simply orchestrate events like this so that this particular passage could speak directly to our age and our culture. Now, I have no problem with God teaching any kind of lesson that he wants to and setting things up. So this is relevant. If it was relevant in Solomon's day, I can tell you, is really relevant today. And materialism knows no class, knows no bounds. It's not rich people that are materialistic. It's not the middle class. By the way, you can get down to the lowest economic strata in any country, and you'll find materialism is a problem in if you've got nothing or you've got plenty. Materialism is this drive in the heart to get. All right, let's read our passage. All right, let's take a look at that. It says, "He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves abundance with his income." This too is like a vapor, a fog. It's vanity. When good things increase, those who consume them increase. So, what's the advantage to the owner except to look on? The sleep of the working man is pleasant, whether he eats a little or much, but a full stomach of the rich does not allow him to sleep. There is a grievous evil. Wow, underline that, which I have seen under the sun, riches being hoarded by their owners to their hurt. And when those riches were lost through bad investments and he had fathered a son, then there was nothing to support him. And as he had come naked from his mother's womb, so he will return as he came. He will take nothing from the fruit of his labor that he can carry in his hand. This also is a grievous evil, exactly as the man is born, thus he will die. So what's the advantage to him who toils for the wind, who tries to herd the cats? Throughout his life, he also eats in darkness with great vexation, sickness, and anger. Here is what I have seen to be good and to be fitting: to eat, to drink, to enjoy oneself in all one's labors in which he toils under the sun during the years of his life which God has given him for his reward. Furthermore, as for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, he has also empowered him to eat with them and from them and receive his reward and rejoice in his labor. This is a gift of God. For he will not often consider the years of his life because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart. Now, folks, there is a lot in these verses. Verses 10 through 20 is powerful. We ought to go over and over again when we're thinking that maybe we're headed down the path of letting things possess us. I had a friend of mine one time tell me, he said, I thought I owned a house. I don't. He says, I think the house owns me because I am, every weekend I'm caught up in doing projects and things to keep the house up and stuff instead of going out fishing or something else. And, isn't that the truth though? Take it out of the realm of the house and just say, how much does our things own us? And how much do we own our things? Well, verses 1 through 12 are a proverbial segment giving us the first three reasons to live for money. So in this whole section, we have 7 reasons not to live for money, and then in the end, Solomon gives us a contrasting answer to these 7 reasons. All right, and the first one in this proverbial statement is this: money will never satisfy. For the person who loves money, no matter how much he has, it will never, ever be enough. Listen to Solomon's words. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves abundance with his income. This too is vanity. According to Rockefeller historian, when he questioned as he's writing his biography, John D. Rockefeller, if you don't know, was at that point in history was the wealthiest man in human history. Now that's saying something if you consider Solomon's wealth and everything else. But this is what is supposed to be, the legacy behind John D. Rockefeller. Yet when asked about by a reporter how much money was enough, he reportedly responded this way: just a little more. Now that's pretty stunning. In my house, you didn't really talk about John D. Rockefeller when I was a kid growing up, because my father, his family, were working in the mines in Ludlow, Colorado, back in the earlier part of last century, when the workers went on strike, and John D. Rockefeller sent in strike breakers to break up the strike and used the Colorado militia, then opened fire, killing numbers of people, mostly women and children, as they opened up with machine gun fire in the tent encampment where these workers lived. My grandmother, my granddad, when they set up their tent, had opened the floorboards and dug a deep pit to use like a storage cellar, and they covered it over. And when the shooting started, my grandmother took my 2 of my aunts and my uncle, put them down in that pit, jumped in herself. When she come out, her tent was riddled with gunfire. Her neighbors had been killed on both sides of her, but because they were prepared, they had a pit prepared, for canned goods and stuff like that. They were able to escape the massacre. So they didn't talk about John D. Rockefeller much in our home. So let me ask you a question though. With that little bit of knowledge that he never saw that he had enough, when he's the richest man in the world, how can you be the richest man in the world, perhaps as they say the richest man in history to that time, and not be satisfied? Well, think about it. I'm not the richest person in the world, and I'm sure none of you are either. But let me ask you a question. Have you just thought, oh, I have to have this. I've got to get this. Man, if I get this, you know, that'll be it. And you get it. And within a month or two, somebody's got something newer, or you see something newer in the store, and you're thinking, oh, if I can just get that. You see, we're never satisfied. That's the mark of materialism. And it is a battle that we fight and try to get over. Because as Solomon tells us, he who loves money will not be satisfied with money. So the ironic curse of loving money is that money is never going to make you happy anyway. It's going to always drive you. Now, money in itself is not an evil thing. But you see, the materialist is always questing that. That's their quest. They love it. That's their passion. And Paul says the love of money is the root of many evils. Solomon also says that it's vanity. It's smoke and mirrors. It's a puff of smoke. It's vapor. It's fog. The illusion of dating happiness through wealth is like a vapor that you can never grasp. You're always reaching for it. Now, the second thing that Solomon says here is additional income brings about additional expenses. This is a fascinating idea that we find in verse 11. Solomon may have been thinking of moochers when he says this, that tend to hang around people. Look at verse 11. It says, when good things increase, those who consume them increase. So, what is the advantage to their owners except to simply look on? He may have been even thinking of the amount of slaves that he had to feed in order to maintain his estate. Remember now, based on the figures that we looked at a couple of weeks ago in 1 Kings 4, commentators have estimated that Solomon may have been feeding anywhere from 14 to 32,000 people daily. And the greater his wealth, the greater the kingdom's wealth, the more people he had to be responsible for that ate up the money. But I think maybe his statement points to a broader principle as well, and that is that larger income tend to bring with them larger expenses. I'm sure we all know what it's like to get a raise and then sit down and figure your budget, and at the end of the month say, "Well, I got a raise. Where did it all go?" It's not there. It's gone. It's like I didn't even have it. Or you get your check, you've got the raise, and you see how much of that raise is eaten up with your taxes because you've now come into a higher tax bracket. They take more out, and with the raise, you get less. We used to, I used to love to grab those days where I got paid double time. Not just time and a half, but double time, and there are people that get double time. Oh, those are great adventures. They're wonderful, and you think, man, I'm making this much money. And when your check comes in, you see what a large chunk of that was taken out, and you're thinking, was it really worth working during that holiday, missing time with my family for this little amount compared to what I would have had otherwise? So you know it's like you look at it and say, well, ultimately you put your hands up and say, that's life. It comes and it goes quickly. We earn it in a hard way, but it flies out with very little effort. Solomon turns this into a challenge. He says, if getting rich is just about more money passing through your hands, then it's really not worth it. At a wedding reception Sherry and I were at years ago for within my family, I watched the father of the bride handing out business cards. It was intended to be a joke, but as I look at the verse, I see really great application. The card read something like this, if I can remember. It was a lot of years ago. You may not know me, but many who do, but there are many who do. They're keeping an eye on me, the florist, the caterer, the seamstress, the printer, the reception center manager, the limousine driver, and oh, so many more. Now it's funny and it's cute, but there is really a serious side of that when you think about it. All of that, and it just there's more mouths to feed, more people to give it to, more obligations for that money. I think you get the idea. Wealth, instead of bringing comfort and ease, actually brings more obligation and pressure. Take people who win the lottery big time. Within hours, they have relatives and friends coming out of the woodwork, people that they don't even know or only met once or twice, out with their hand. After all, the only real benefit that you get out of having more and more wealth is watching it go by. Maybe the only real pleasure you get out of it is see it uh, run like water through a sieve. After all, that's the only benefit. So the question is that Solomon poses, what is the advantage to the owner except to look on, to watch it go? It's like saying, well, There goes my money. Of course, the understood answer to that question is no, it's not worth it. If that's what it is, and the more I hoard, the more it just kind of runs out like a sieve. You see, the simple illustration I can give you to this kind of materialism is to take and take some mud or clay or something in your hand and begin to squeeze it. What happens? It oozes out. The harder you grasp it, the more it squeezes out from your grasp. Right? Well, the third thing that Solomon gives us is money. A second. Popped up there. All right. There we go. Money, believe it or not, Solomon tells us, causes insomnia. Listen to the verse. The sleep of the working man is pleasant, whether he eats a little or much, but a full stomach of a rich man does not allow him to sleep. Well, people will pay ridiculous amounts of money to get a good night's sleep, won't they? Well, if you don't believe me, go into a mattress store and see the prices of mattresses and listen to the mattress salesman. The fact is that regardless of what the mattress store tries to tell you, you cannot buy a good night's sleep. Just like you can't buy happiness. It just doesn't work that way. The fact is that many of us who have ever worked a manual job knows what it feels like when you finish your work and you've worked hard to come home, and at night when you go to bed to lay your head on the pillow exhausted from a hard day's work and sleep like a baby all night long. And Solomon says the sleep of the working man is pleasant whether he eats a little or he eats much. Even if he can afford beans and rice, and that's all he can afford. And believe me, I ate a lot of beans and rice. We always had beans in the house. Maybe not so much rice, ours was potatoes, but always had beans. We may not have had much more than that, but we always had beans, and we could have beans breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's why I guess I still like beans today. I don't know. But if all he's got is beans and potatoes, or, he's going to sleep well. But what about the rich man? His abundance, or the idea of overabundance, is what we get here, actually diminishes his ability to sleep. Maybe it's the rich foods that he eats that keep him awake at night. Or maybe it's the fact that he's always anxious about protecting his investment. Somebody that is tied up in this, when they see how volatile the market is, they really have a problem sleeping at night because they are so busy up watching the market. The first thing, they close their eyes at night, and everything's running around in their head, and all the responsibility of what's going to happen with my money, what's going to happen, that they never sleep. I've talked to people, I've counseled with people. They've come back when we had the big recession, and even during this corona thing, as they watch their investments maybe go down, it causes such worry that they cannot sleep. Ironically, this guy works like a dog to store up wealth, but in order to do so, he's forced to forfeit something that money can't buy, and that's a good night's sleep. And that, my friends, is a tragedy. Now, when we move from here into verse 13, we move from the proverbial statement to a storytelling, to a story statement. In verses 13 through 17, he tells the tragic story of a man who made riches his life pursuit, and he gives us four more reasons not to live for money, or four more reasons why chasing money is a folly. The first lesson we take from this story is materialism is bad for you. It's not good for you. It's bad for you. And I see the, oh, good. I was looking at the wrong, I was looking at the section hand. Still got 5 minutes. Let's get through this at least. Materialism is bad for you. Verse 13 tells us there is a grievous evil which is I have seen under the sun, riches being hoarded by their owner to his hurt, to his detriment. Now, the Amplified, I like this. Let me give it to you. Amplified says, there is a grievous evil which I have seen under the sun, riches being kept and hoarded by their owner is to his own misery. Let me, do you, anybody out there, do you know a miserly person? If you do, raise your hand or, do a pop up on the, whatever. But have you ever known a miserly person? A Scrooge type person, a miser? Do you know one? Do you know one that is truly a happy person? No. Solomon refers to this story as a grievous evil. That word for grievous comes from the word that means to be sick or to make sick. The misfortune Solomon is about to relate to us is so terrible that to him it was sickening. It made him ill to even think about it. So, what happens? Well, there was a man who kept, or more specifically, hoarded his riches. Get all he can, cans all he gets, and sits on it, hangs on to it. Scrooge McDuck out in his safe, rolling around in his money with the door shut. When he opens the purse, flies fly out. Okay? This guy is a regular Scrooge, and he certainly pays for his action. First Solomon tells us that his materialism is bad for him, perhaps bad for his health. Perhaps it was bad for his relationships, bad perhaps in a way that it made him cranky. Maybe it ate away at him all the time. Probably all of those things are true. But the bottom line is that his materialism was bad for him. By the way, the harmful effects of materialism have been recorded by Christians and non Christians alike. I did a web search a few days ago, on this subject as we're going through this, and I found articles on this subject, this very subject, in the New York Times, Bloomberg, The Guardian, all of those papers. In fact, one author cited the health. It was cited in the health section of the New York Times, compared the growing body of data on the harmful effects of materialism to what we have learned about the harmful effects of smoking. And by the way, you could be this Scrooge living in a hovel by the railroad tracks, as well as the guy who lives in the mansion on the hill. You see, it does not have a gender break or an economic break. It goes cross generational, cross gender, goes cross economic boundaries. Uh, it's simply not good for you. It eats away at you like a cancer. If allowed to do so, it will possess your every thought and every action. I think for most of us, we're willing to put up with bad consequences if we know that our sacrifice will be worth it in the end. But materialism does not offer that kind of hope. It offers nothing but misery. Now, let me tell you, materialism on some scales is like this. We may not have the money to spend, but we can go out there and get a dozen credit cards, maybe at the base limit, it doesn't matter, and we live with them at the max. Some people have 10, 15, I know somebody had 25 credit cards, department store cards, credit cards of all kinds. Every one of them were maxed out. And sometimes he would rob one to pay one to keep the collectors off the back. It's this deadening cycle that they give in. That's materialism. You may not have large bank accounts, but there may be people out there with a large amount of debt because they're driven by this thing we call materialism. And I need to stop there. I'll pick up on the fifth one tomorrow, which is simply this: it could all be gone tomorrow. So that'll be a fitting place for us to pick up tomorrow and move on through uh, this story of this man and learn these lessons and take them to heart. Let me ask you, have you seen yourself in the lesson or someone else that you love, somebody that you know? Have you seen that? You see, this is speaking directly to us, directly to our culture, directly to our societal trend that we have going. And it is something that overtakes Christian and non Christian alike. These principles will work, in the life of a non-Christian as well as a Christian. They're meant to be, to bring us a fuller life, a more satisfying and abundant life. But these scriptural principles can be applied even to someone who isn't a believer. Well, let's pray. Father, I thank you. Thank you for the sweetness of your word, the directness of your word. Now, Father, I pray that in any way we have seen ourselves in this portrait that Solomon is painting of the person who really lives under the curse of materialism. Father, let us see it. And let us seek your wisdom and the help that we need to break that kind of cycle and to honor you with the substance of our life and not try to just drown ourselves in it. Lord, you have given us the ability to know freedom, even from the bondage of mammon, the bondage of materialism, the bondage of debt. Father, let us hear your word. Let us hear you clearly. And Lord, we look into this word, this perfect, wonderful mirror. Let us see what adjustments we need to make in our life and then do it. We love you, Lord. Thank you for this group. Thank you, Lord, that you're ministering to Terry and to Dale and to Buddy at the very time that we are here. We thank you for that. Lord, to you be glory. All glory belongs to you. Thank you, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. I pray, oh, so much, that God will increase and multiply exponentially his wisdom in your life and give you the power to see in that perfect, wonderful mirror and make whatever adjustments need to be made. When you do, you find the greatest joy and happiness in the world. Well, God bless you. I'll be back here at 6 tonight as we continue to look at Christ in the Old Testament. All right. And then tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. All right. Love you. And I'll see you later. Have a great day.